You know something, Curtis? Boston Calling is just a few weeks away, and we've spoken to some great bands who are going to be playing there, like Nate Perry and Ragged Company, Battle Mode, and Snack Time.
Those are all great bands, and I can't wait to check out BC 2025, but we're not done yet because we've got Rebuilder.
Oh, shit, that's right. This is a Boston Music Award winning band. They've played with other great bands like the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, Diarrhea Planet, Bad Religion, NoFX, the list goes on. They have their absolutely kick-ass album, Local Support. Curtis, let's get in the studio, man, right now.
Citywide Blackout starts right now.
Welcome to Citywide Blackout with your hosts, Max Bowen and Curtis Hughes. With years of experience in journalism, music, and entertainment business, they put their knowledge to work, bringing you the best in-depth, fun, and sometimes outrageously bizarre interviews with authors, musicians, and many other creators from around the world. With the right amount of gusto and a few F-bombs thrown in for emphasis, you're sure to have a good time. So put up your feet, grab a beverage, and let's go.
All right, Sal. Well, let us dive right in with, of course, the big news that you are among the local bands performing at Boston Calling. You are now the fourth band that we've actually spoken to that's going to be playing at this wonderful show. Nate Perry and Ragged Company, Battle Mode, and Snack Time are all part of the lineup. Rebuilder will be on Saturday, May 24th. How did this whole thing come together?
You know, I think everything with Rebuilder is you just got to ask. And I saw that, you know, they had local bands on the Orange stage. Actor Observer did it last year. So I think I just reached out to one of those guys and I was like, how did you guys get in? And they kind of directed me to the guy that books a lot of that stuff. And I remember I sent him an Instagram message last year and I was like, if anyone dies, we're available. And his response was, well, let's hope nobody dies.
Yeah. Ideally, ideally we won't have to mark.
A good first response, by the way.
Yeah.
and then months later, or what it could have been a year later, I was like, whenever the next time they were booking the next year, he was like, what's your email? I want to send you over an offer. And I was like, great. Awesome. So I just give him my email. And then he offered us the spot.
Now, when they said that, did you think, oh shit, did someone die? Oh God! I was kidding. Yeah. I didn't mean for that to happen.
No, because it had already happened. The shit that year Boston Calling had happened. It was the next time it was coming.
Okay, out. I get you. Yeah, that's so great though. I love it. Now, is this your first time playing there?
As Rebuilder, yes, it is the first time playing. For me personally, it kind of will be the second time, only because the time before that, I played harmonica on stage with Frank Turner during his set.
Oh, very cool.
Wow.
Because I've been friends with him and his crew for a while, and they were coming in to do Boston Calling, and I think that we have some of their gear that we help store in the US, and I think I was taking some of their stuff that they didn't need to my space, and they were like, yeah, just come hang, we'll put you on our guest list. And then on the way, I was I took my motorized scooter to the stadium, and I found a wristband on the ground. And so I just put it on, went in, found those guys, and they were like, how did you get in without any of your credentials? I was like, I didn't even have to go get them. I was like, I just found a wristband on the ground. And they were like, well, you can just hang out with us until, after his set is when you'll take the stuff. And then I went on stage to see him play, and they were like, you should play harmonica for the solo today, because he always has someone play harmonica for the solo. And I was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. So I went out and played harmonica for it, and I was on the big TV. People sent me video of them being in the crowd, taking video of me on the screen playing harmonica. So it was pretty funny. And then I just went home. I was like, okay, I'll take this stuff back to the practice space and then go home now.
That is such a punk rock story, just finding a wristband on the ground. You walk in the door, no problems. You get to play with this band. That's so awesome, man.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
So what can the audience expect from the set for Rebuilder, and what do you hope new listeners will take away from the band's performance?
I'm hoping that people that don't know who we are will see us play and not think they're seeing just like a local band play. I think that when Rebuilder plays on big stages, we carry ourselves very well. And I feel like we carry ourselves as like a band that has been on tour for a long time or that is used to playing these stages. I think people that become new fans of ours are always surprised to hear that we're actually like way smaller of a band than we are. So I'm hoping that, with Boston Calling, there's so many people there to see all different types of music. And I think our current fans and then people that haven't heard us before will just see our set and see how much energy we have on stage and want to check us out and watch. But I also hope that they get the feeling of like, I always try to make it like very apparent that we are a band that exists on friendship and community. Like we love the Boston punk community and the music community itself.
Mhm.
And I love all those guys on stage and the fact that we've been able to keep doing this as we've gotten older and as everyone's lives have gotten busier. This is still the one thing that brings us together to be able to do. So I hope all of that people can kind of see that when we play.
Well, that's definitely a great answer. And you definitely hear that in the music as well, which is, awesome. Speaking of the, plethora of bands that are out there for this show for Boston Calling 2025, and it really runs the gambit, musically speaking, in terms of the different genres that are put together for this year. What bands are you looking most forward to seeing playing?
It's pretty cool that we get to be on a bill with like Avril Lavigne and Sum 41. And Fall Out Boy. So I'm excited to see those bands too, because I usually like wouldn't go to like a place like the Garden to see like Fall Out Boy play or wherever Fall Out Boy does play. But Future Teens is a band that we've done shows with in the past, and Megan from Work is another band that we're friends with, and I'm just really excited to see those bands be able to play for a larger audience. I think like those two in particular, I'm very excited to see.
And there's just gonna be so many more too, like it's a chance to kind of just sample all this amazing music from so many bands too.
Yeah, I feel like I spend a lot of time just walking around to different stages, and then I'll watch something and be like, oh, who's this? This is awesome. And then like add it to my phone and then listen to them and then be like, oh, I wish I knew all their stuff before I saw them play. And then I'll just see them next time they come around.
Now, as awesome as Boston Calling is going to be, and it is going to be awesome, folks, Rebuilder has shared the stage with a lot of really great bands over the years. Dropkick Murphys, the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, Diarrhea Planet, great name by the way. Pennywise, Bad Religion, the list goes on. Sal, are any of these bands like your like lifetime goal bands to play with? Where any of these bands like, holy shit, this is like my like Mount Everest?
I mean, a lot of times that is like how it comes about. Like we see these bands come through and I'm always like, well, I wonder if we can play with them. And like, I'll look into it and be, see, well, who booked the show? Who's their booking it? Who's the band's booking agent? And reach out and see if I can make these things happen. I mean, Dropkick seem so unobtainable because, I've worked for that band off and on, but they don't just throw any band on, and especially with like, it was more MGM that seemed unattainable. Like we had opened for Dropkick a couple of times at this point, but I work as a living as a merch guy and I sell at MGM often. Every time I'm there, I'm like, man, it would be so awesome if we could play this room, like when could that ever happen? And I'm not trying to be pessimistic about these things, and people always think I am, but I'm being realistic when I say, I was just like, well, the room is 5,000 people. We can't draw 5,000 people. Our friends that can draw 5,000 people, there's not that many of them that would be in the opportunity to add us. So the fact that, this past March, we were able to play MGM was just like a huge deal that we could do that with Dropkick Murphys and the Bouncing Souls and Hot Water Music. And like I even said from the stage, if you want to talk about like a bucket list thing, it was like 2000 or 99 when the Punkorama tour came through to Avalon, and it was the Dwarves, Bouncing Souls, and Dropkick Murphys. was one of the first shows I ever went to. I think I was probably around like 15 or 16, and I'd only known Dropkick at that point. The Dwarves terrified me, but I also thought it was great at the same time. And then the Bouncing Souls to me had like the catchiest songs I'd ever heard, and I was like, I want to be in a band like that band. Like Bouncing Souls is the band I wanted to be in. I loved Dropkick, but Bouncing Souls was the one that was like, this is the type of band I want to be in. And still to this day, it's still the band I want to be in. Like that, those guys have survived all of this, and through, they're like a band of friends. And you see that completely. That is why that band exists. So the fact that we were able to play that stage with that lineup at MGM all these years later of a show that I saw when I was like in high school, that was probably the biggest bucket list for me. And I couldn't believe it happened.
One thing I'm getting is that you are a guy who is always looking for the ins. Like, okay, I'm here, like who books a show, who's running the venue, things like that. I like that though, because you're always saying, okay, you're like keeping your like eyes open for that opportunity to reach out and ask a question. If anyone dies, put us on the bill.
I mean, I learned pretty early on that like no one was gonna do it for you,
Right.
Like, and I think I always, even as a kid, like every CD I ever got, I read the liner notes, and I would always read the thank yous, and I would always see who works for them, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And still, even like the Diarrhea Planet thing, like those guys were a band I really liked a lot. I saw them play at Great Scott. They blew my mind away. I was like, this band's unbelievable. They played with this band So Glows, who I really liked a lot too. I bought both their CDs at that show, or both the records. I came home, immediately looked at the packaging, saw who their booking agent is. They had the same agent. So I was like, well, this makes sense. This is why they're on the show together. And then I think I emailed their agent. That was the first year that we were a band. And I was like, hey, we're going to Florida. We're playing the same festival you guys are. The day before is Halloween. We're not a band that can draw in any way. We're a brand new band. Nobody knows who we are. However, we would really love to play with Diarrhea Planet. We really like the band a lot. I have a promoter in Florida who has the room to be able to do a show. Would the band be interested? And I remember he came back and he said, I don't know if they'll have any interest, but I'll ask. And then he said, actually, they really want to do a show on Halloween the night before. Can you pass me the contact for the room? I set them up. And then I think I said, we need some shows on the way home. Can we do some shows on the way home? And he was, I think in Duke Coffee House, they played in like North Carolina. And he said, I don't think I can get you on any of their shows because there's no budget for an opener. And I was like, that's fine. I was like, we'll play for free because we have to do a show in North Carolina anyway. We'd have to go up against your show, and we're not going to do well going up against your show. And he was like, you know what? Let me work it out. And he's like, I added you to the show. There's no budget, though. I was like, no problem. Awesome. Thank you. And after the show, the venue gave us like, I think $200 and was like, hey, like Adam, their agent, was able to finagle some money for you guys. And I was like, I don't think anyone's ever done that for us since, but like, it was amazing. It was awesome that they cared that much. Like, at least their agent cared that much to take care of us when we just reached out. But like, yeah, I'm always looking to be like, I know for a fact on everything, none of this just happens by circumstance.
Yeah.
There's always people behind that make all of this happen. I'm a music business major, so from the beginning, it is what I studied and always cared about. And, I've worked in venues forever. So I just know that there's people behind this curtain who make these decisions.
Yeah. You always got to ask the question. Like I had the experience towards the end of 24. I had a guest on, and she happened to mention that she's good friends with Jonathan Mayberry, who's like a New York Times bestselling writer, Netflix deals, everything. And I said, would he be interested in being on our show? And she said, well, I'll ask. And then I get the email later in the day. Yeah, he wants to be on your show. Make it happen. I was like, oh shit.
It's awesome.
I know. I was like, oh my God. And then later on this year, we had the chance to have Thomas Jane from Marvel's The Punisher on the show. And same thing. I thought, yeah, what the hell? I'll ask. Worst they'll say is no. And they said, yeah, sure. When do you want to do it? But oh, okay then. Here we go. So
yeah.
It's
the first year that we were a band, we got a lot of shit from a lot of the other local bands. And even like small promoters would give me a hard time, and they would say, Rebuilder gets everything. And I was like, I mean, I was like, we're getting a lot of shows right now because we're kind of like a brand new band and we work really hard. I was like, but like, are any of those bands asking? Like, I'd always say, whenever a band comes to me and complains that they didn't get on something, I was like, did you ask? They're like, no. I mean, who would I ask? I was like, then you have no right to complain.
Yeah.
You weren't even
You
being
haven't
considered.
done any of the work.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Keep your eyes open, folks. Do your homework, look stuff up, and ask the fucking question.
Just
ask.
reach out. That's all you got to do is reach out. And worst thing can happen is they say no. You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
That's the best thing that can happen sometimes because at least you get a response.
Most of the time you get
at least
crickets,
get an
no
answer
response.
right.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So many times I was just like, I just wish they would say no so we know we can book something else.
Yeah.
The waiting around for a response is what sucks for me. I'm like, I'd rather just know and then move on.
It is death sometimes. Yeah. It's like waiting. And you wonder, like, why aren't they getting back to us? Do they hate us? Blah, blah, blah. You know, there's so many things. It's so many questions. At least you have an answer there. All right. Let us move on because I want to talk about local support. This was your 2023 release, your most recent release. And Sal, this is a fucking amazing album, dude. This is some amazing stuff. And I know that story-wise, you cover a lot of like different ground here, but what inspired some of the music in terms of like what you were singing about?
I mean, I pull from a lot of places. Like, I'm not very good at writing things that I don't know anything about. Like, there's people that can just like make up stories, and it's very hard for me to do that. I kind of only write about like things I know, the things I'm feeling. Sometimes I throw in lines in there that don't really make sense, but it sounds fine. And I'm like, well, no one will know, you know, but for the most part, it's all just things that have happened to me. And like every song has like a different theme, but it's kind of all like just kind of growing pains, you know, a lot of just like dealing with like, there's a lot of times in my life where I've dealt with like, even in Rebuilder, always feeling like, you know, like we don't get enough things, or, you know, or like my career doesn't take off like other people's careers and things like that. So I just like write a lot about dealing with like rejection and dealing with like, you know, not accomplishing as much as I would like to personally. And, you know, like staying alive is like a song I wrote about the times like when I was in college, I had like probably the worst depression I ever had. And I always had thoughts of like, not being around anymore, not necessarily like suicide, but just like not wanting to exist. And I knew that other people had kind of that same feeling, but no one wanted to talk about it. And I was like, well, if I write this song, and I kind of had always had these lines that I wanted to do something with. But for me, it was always important that like, if I write this song, that's kind of a very dark song, it needs to have a resolution at the end, which is why it ends with like, you know, we always find our way home. Because for me, it's always really important to like leave things resolved, leave things with like a glimmer of hope that things can get better. And it's a song that we always have in our set list now because I think it's resonated with like a lot of people. So I think, you know, and then the song that we always do like right after that is like Broke Downs, which is like about sick of being in a band and just grinding away forever and knowing if it's for anything at all, you know? Yeah, I think Wedding Day has a lot of movie references. It is like autobiographical about like thinking about past relationships and seeing ex-girlfriends, ex-partners like get married and just like you not wishing that it was you, but thinking of like it's weird that they went off to do that and where I am right now. You kind of just start comparing a lot of it. And then I was like, I love the movie so much, so I just threw in there's a Wayne's World reference in there and then a Back to the Future and then Say Anything. And I'm always like, I wonder if people pick up on it, and they never do.
I definitely did not know, but now that I know, I'm going to listen to it again and see if I can find them because yeah, I love those movies, man.
Yeah.
You know, we love origin stories here, so it wouldn't be right if we didn't ask about how the band got its start getting everyone together in this iteration.
It's not that great of a story, but we had another band that was called Dead Ellington that me and like my best friend growing up, Jason, had from like high school kind of on. And it was a fine band. I mean, I probably thought it was better than what it was. And in the time that me and Jason had always tried to keep this band together, Brandon, who plays drums in Rebuilder, he was always in and out playing guitar and bass. I just sang in that band. And then the last kind of iteration of that band, Daniel joined on bass and Craig joined on drums. So at that point, we had so many people who like didn't start the band except for me and Jason. And Jason was moving to California. And when we got to the end of the year, it seemed just like the band was done. Like Jason's moving. The rest of the guys were just like, well, yeah, sure. I'm just not in this thing anymore that I was in, which they always kind of felt like fill-in members anyway. And I kind of had this golden ticket that I didn't really tell anyone about because like it was when I think it was Hurricane Sandy had happened and had hit the New York Rockaways. I helped. Dropkick was in Europe and they had one of their old merch guys go with a van full of supplies to New York to the people that needed it. I had another van. So they asked, they were like, do you mind if we use your van too? Like, would you drive over there and drop off supplies? I was like, yeah, absolutely. Anything that I can do to help. And so I did. Ken sent me a text and he was like, hey man, thank you so much for doing that. I know you always want to play open for us. Your band can open up the next St. Patrick's Day show we have in March. And I was like, awesome, thank you. But I didn't want to be like, my band's breaking up. So, I grew up playing drums, but in this band, I only sang. Even though I wrote a bunch of the songs, I just wasn't a very good guitar player. I still am not a very good guitar player, but I could write songs. And I was like, okay, well, if this band's ending, I'm making a new band. I'm going to play guitar and sing. There's plenty of people who've made careers of playing guitar and singing, and they're not very good. So I'll just learn as I go. And I told the other guys, I was like, we can open up for Dropkick in March. We got to get like 6 songs together. We got to get something together. I have these like 5. And the rest of the guys were just like, Craig was like, yeah, I'll do it, but I don't want to play drums in this band. I want to play guitar. I was like, that's great, because I'm not very good at guitar. You're even a little bit better than me. We'll be fine. And he knew how to record. He went to school for engineering. So I was like, cool, he can record tracks. Daniel stayed on bass and he was like excited to be a part of something from the beginning that he would be from and be able to like make his own bass parts. And then we got one of our old members to play drums on that first EP, but then Brandon ended up not moving. So I think I asked him to jump in so we could play some shows. And we were all just like, yeah, this works. And we're getting better shows than our old band did. And people like it more right off the bat. So we just kind of kept it that way. But that first Dropkick show at House of Blues was like, we played the night before at O'Brien's because a friend of ours was like, do you want to play this show? And I was like, well, we have a show the next day at House of Blues. He's like, yeah, play this so you can figure out what the hell your band is. And I was like, okay, yeah, we'll do that. And so we played to nobody at O'Brien's the night before. Next day we played to a sold out House of Blues show.
Awesome. How do you feel that the band's sound has evolved over time since the first record to the second record, Local Support?
I always consider the EP in between, like our second record, like Mass Turnpike, because while it doesn't have as many songs, I feel like the songwriting and where we kind of figured out what kind of band we wanted to be was like really there. Like the middle EP and Local Support is like what we wanted the band to be. The first record is us trying to figure out what band we are. There's like a lot of choices we made there too. Like first record, I'm still figuring out like, is Craig going to sing in the band as well? Like I remember I was like kind of reluctant to that because I was like, oh, what if you quit and now I have all these songs that like are your songs? And like I think I was so apprehensive. I was just like, no, I want to be like the only guy that like sings in this band. And then he was like, well, that's stupid because I wrote a bunch of these songs. And I was like, yeah, those songs are great. He's like, well, I'm only going to sing it. And I was like, well, let's just sing together. So I'm still there. But in doing that, we end up just like harmonizing and we're being, I don't think we like realized, oh, we sound really good when we harmonize. So like that was always a thing we kept doing. And that was like always a cool rebuilder thing for us to do. And on that first LP, like on Rock and Roll in America, there's songs like in double time that are fast because we were like, no, we need to be a punk band. And then we get to like the EP and I'm like, I don't think we need to do that double time beat. Like it's not our best songs, and like I don't think that like it matters. And I remember being a bit worried if it would matter. I was like, what if we don't play fast punk? Like I don't know if people will care. And then we put out that EP, and that was not anything that anyone cared about. And once we knew that, it just changed things for me, because I no longer was like trying to write fast songs for the purpose of it being fast. If it was fast and aggressive, it was because I felt the need it needed to be. But a lot of the stuff that I write is kind of way more mid-tempo, and there's a lot of complexity to some of the songs, because that's more of the music I've been listening to anyway. Like, as much as I love Pennywise, like I liked Pennywise when I was like 16 and skateboarding and not being very good at skateboarding. It's got a time and a place. I'm not ripping Pennywise like when I'm driving down in the car all the time. Maybe sometimes, but like for the most part, like there's other stuff I'm just listening to, you know?
One thing I read that I absolutely want to talk about was that Rebuilder has been nominated 6 times as the best punk band in Boston by the Boston Music Awards. Now, in terms of like local accolades, BMA is about as big as it gets. I mean, getting like recognized like that, what do you think that kind of means for the band?
I have such a difficult like relationship with like that award show and music awards. I think it's great that there's a music awards show for sure. And I think that like anything we can do to recognize smaller bands is always important. I never liked that like there was just big national bands on the ballot, because I was just like, well, they're not even going to go to that night. And like, dude, right. I mean, how are you going to throw Noah Kahan on like Boston Music Award ballot? Like the guy's playing Fenway Park. He's got his own award show. It's called the Grammys. Like he gets to go to that. We don't get to go to that. Just like, let us have this, you know? So like, that's always the kind of issue I've had with it, but it's always just nice to get recognized, you know, like we would get nominated every year. And it would always be a running joke in our group text to be like, let's just hope we don't get nominated this year. And like some other group of smaller bands that are doing cool punk rock stuff gets nominated. Like, I think there might be a lot of Boston hardcore groups that might be annoyed that we're getting nominated, especially when hardcore is having a moment right now. And there's so many hardcore bands in Boston that could get the recognition. And I still think they should. But I think it's like one of those things where it's like the fact that we won this last one for me was like, okay, we finally won one. And it's a cool thing to just know that like there's at least people in the community that do appreciate what you do. And like it was one of those things like I could like show my mom and she would like be like, oh, this is like a big deal. Like if I tell her that we're like, oh, we opened for Frank Turner, she's like, oh, fuck that is, you know, like, but like if I show her an award and I'm like, we got the best punk hardcore, she's like, that's awesome. Like later she posted on Facebook and she was like, Rebuilder's the best band of Boston, they won it. And I was like, that's not the award we won, but I know to you think that's the award we won, and that's fine.
That's close enough. It's close enough. Yep, I love that. Know? It's like yeah, wait, no.
Totally. It's just you know, it's things like that. I think that like it makes other people that aren't a part of the music scene see it, and it kind of validates you a little bit.
Sure.
So I do appreciate it. If we never get nominated ever again, I'm perfectly fine with it. I just want a new group of bands to show up on that list. And I just think it needs to stay small. I think it needs to be smaller bands, no national bands. If you can go to the Grammys, you shouldn't be on that list.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, I've gone to the BMAs a couple times and I get the why and it makes sense, but still seeing these like national touring bands that, like you said, can sell out like massive stadiums and probably haven't been back to Boston in years. To see them on the nominating list alongside a local band that I just saw at, say, the Middle East a couple weeks ago, I think I don't see the correlation here. You know, couldn't
Just
you
doesn't make sense. Like, what chance do you
Right.
have, you know?
Exactly. But and we could talk about this all day. But I do want to also talk about the Boston punk scene. Of course, Curtis and I, we both lived in Boston for many years. We got to explore the music scene there, and we both know that the punk scene is really, really good. It's really strong. Talk about what you think are some of like the bands to be listening to right now, along with Rebuilder, of course.
One of the bands that, for me, like my favorite Boston band is Choke Up. And Choke Up, we have become such good friends with. We always try to do like a co-headlining show together. We had done like the Sinclair a couple of times. We've done like deep cuts together. I am so envious of their singer Sam's ability to just like write these beautiful lyrics and write these amazing songs. And those guys have been friends since like grade school. And that's one of the reasons I love the band so much. And I think their two records, Black Coffee, Bad Habits, and Stormy Blue, are perfect records. I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice by not listening to them. Harley, who plays drums in that band, he played drums on 3 tracks on Local Support. He played drums on Telephone, Hold On, and Broke Down. So those were like the 3 that we had kind of wrote during COVID. And he played on those. He also played on Monuments too. We have a big friendship with him, but Harley's also in another band that's called Sadlands out of that. They're out of New York, but that band's great too. More of a New Hampshire band, but there's a band called Hell Beach that is playing a lot of stuff, and everyone just loves Hell Beach. Everyone's like, Hell Beach is great. In the Meantime is another punk band. Those kids are from Salem, Peabody area. That band's amazing. They're doing shows with Wilhelm Scream soon, I think, and like Wilhelm Scream is like, I mean, I know they're a national band, but they're like the most fucking New Bedford band you can get. You hang out with those kids and you're like, you are from New Bedford through and through. And every record those guys put out is great. And that's another one. It's just like a group of friends. Those guys keep going because of their friendship. Little Low is like members of Save Ends. Save Ends was a great band. I love Little Low as well, too. There's so many. The problem is that the Boston scene, I feel like it doesn't get as much attention because it's hard to break out of here. So that we have a lot of bands, but they don't last very long, and then they just go away. And then you're like, oh, but that thing they did was ridiculous and awesome. One of my favorite Boston bands was Drexel. Drexel was one of my favorite bands ever. I saw them so many times. Nobody outside of like a fucking 3-mile radius of like Alston knows of that band. But those records they did are still like my favorite records. And I think even going back to like the Boston hardcore scene always has to compare with like the DC hardcore scene in LA during the 80s, you know, and a lot of those two places get a lot of recognition, and rightfully so. The bands that came out of there are great. But, you know, the Freeze and Jerry's Kids and SSD and DYS, for me, those were the cooler bands. And I think it gets overlooked, but we do have a great scene.
So in your mind, Sal, let's talk about real quick, because you brought up an interesting point. Why is it that you think that a lot of the bands seem to fade away, fizzle out around that 3-5 year threshold and don't really have that longevity and that kind of stamina to keep pushing until they finally do break out?
I think it's because, one, that 3 to 4 year period is a lot of time where kids just come here and go to college, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so like sometimes you get these bands that get together and they're really good, but then like once that year 4 is up for them, very rarely are you seeing the bands saying like, oh, this is worth it enough to keep it together. Kind of just always see these bands like fade away after college. And then the ones that are older than that, you know, it's so expensive to live here in Boston. And I think that like as it changes and as venues close and practice spaces close and, you know, it getting less and less affordable, you just see that the bands disappear because like, you know, a key member or someone in the band leaves and moves, you know, like Daniel, our bass player, lives in Portland, Maine. Our drummer lives in Salem. Craig lives in Somerville and I live in Watertown. So me and Craig are kind of the only ones that are left that are like around here. And this is why it's like even hard for us to get together and practice. We usually only practice and write when we have like shows coming up, and we make it work. But it was way easier when we started 10 years ago and we all lived 10 minutes from the practice space. And we'd be like, yeah, let's go rip a practice for a couple of hours and then everyone go home. It's, the scheduling of it wasn't as hard. But yeah, I just think that if you look at a place like Philly, right, there's so many punk bands that exist out of Philly. It's because it's so cheap to live there that it's like, okay, this band is working where we make X amount of money. It's not a lot of money, but it is enough where we can pay the rent at home. That's $400 to $500. It's worth keeping the band together. If you're like, oh, my rent at home is between $1,200 and $2,000. That band's not touring and that band's not staying together.
We had the same experience actually back in the day because, like I said, we all used to live in the Boston area. So myself, Curtis, the other folks who were on the citywide team here and there over the years, it was so easy to just get together to like record the show because we were all just like right there. We had a studio that we did the show out of, and likewise, we felt so connected with the scene because these are the folks that we would see at other shows, at bars and restaurants, just kind of out and about. And I think that's the thing that we've missed is having that sort of connectivity to everything and having everything right there.
Right, exactly.
So one of the other interesting things that we noticed about the band is you did end up hooking up with Iodine Recordings. Of course, that's a well-known indie label, here in the Boston area with a long storied history. How did you guys end up getting connected with those folks, and what's it been like working with them?
It's been great working with them. It kind of happened because they had started up again. We knew that they were releasing stuff. I think I at one point did hear like Casey, the owner of the label, was kind of interested in putting out a record, but we had already sent it over to AF, which was Anti-Flag's label, and the guy Chris, who was running the label, was like, "Yeah, we'll put out your record." It's like, great, and then that's why I never went over to Iodine, and then I don't think I heard from Casey at Iodine, so I just assumed that it wasn't a thing. And then there was a sexual assault allegation that came out against Justin, the singer of Anti-Flag, and the whole entire label disappeared. And unfortunately, it disappeared while our record was like not like landed. Like it was still like in the middle of like being uploaded to like streaming for a release date, and it was still at the plant being pressed. And a lot of people's lives were affected and everything that was happening. So it was kind of hard for me to get answers of like what was happening with my record, which I understand was like the least important of everyone's questions. But it was the important one for me at wanting to know what's happening with my record. Luckily, I think someone that's like a part of the community, like a punk kid, like at the plant was like, "Oh, we're about to like press these records. It's like, need us to like change the label?" And I was like, "Yeah, take off the AF logo off of that. Here's the new artwork." And so we were able to get the records without any AF affiliation. And I think I got stickers to like go over on the jacket with like a new logo. But we didn't even have to do that because Casey reached out to me, was like, "We want to help you with your record. We heard everything that's going on and we really like the record, but we should like maybe delay the release." And I was like, "No, we can't delay the release." I was like, "Record's already landing. We have shows of Streetlight Manifesto. We have shows of Frank Turner. Like these are going to be the biggest shows we played. We're going to sell records at those shows. So if that's a deal breaker for you, I understand. But this record's coming out." And it was like, "Oh, if it's just jackets you need, we can just get rush order on jackets." And that's what we did. That was the only thing we needed. There was like the liner notes or anything inside never mentioned AF. It could have been by accident. I think we just stopped putting thank yous in the record because it took up too much space. And so it just wasn't there. So I was like, well, it's not in the liner notes. It's not on the actual record. It's just on the jackets. So he rush ordered jackets, got jackets to my house. I assembled them. So we had jackets for tour. We had jackets to drop off at Death Wish that did the distribution. And we were able to become an Iodine band within the matter of like a week or two turnaround to like really saving our record. Like he really saved that record from like, from just being something that everyone ignored.
Damn. That's all I'm going to say is damn, man. That's really amazing. I mean, that is some freaking hard ass work.
And then like Casey brought on Jesse, like Jesse Moss is married to Jay Moss, who recorded our record, but like Jesse is such a close friend of the band and has always done stuff for the band since like the beginning, since like, since she's been there. They moved from Australia here and like worked with me doing like merchandise jobs and stuff. And we become extremely close. So when they got hired to be the label manager, I was like, well, this is great because, we have someone that we know cares about us personally and, that we want to work with.
Well, folks, we are coming down to the end of this conversation. It's just like flown right by. But of course, we're going to wrap this thing up the same way we always do by asking what is next.
Well, we have Boston Calling in a couple of weeks, which is next. And then after that, we right now don't have anything to announce for like summertime, but we are going to Fest in October in Florida, which is this punk festival that we have been a part of for a very long time. It's one of our favorite things to play. And then after that, we're probably going to try to do our own show in the fall that we're working on. It might be past fall. I think we're aiming to maybe do something in like December. We're in the planning stages of it right now, but you will definitely see Rebuilder doing a headline show in Boston somewhere where you'll be able to buy a ticket and see us. And hopefully it's cool. I don't know. I hope it's cool.
I'm sure it will be. Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. All right, folks. Well, you heard everything. You want to know more. It's real simple. You go to rockandrollinamerica.com. Everything is there. Of course, follow the band on their socials. Check them out on Spotify. And if you're going to Boston Calling Saturday, the 24th, check out Rebuilder. You will not regret it. And Sal Ellington, thank you once again. It has been an absolute blast talking to you, man.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for having me.
To close things out, we are going to be giving you guys one of the tracks from the band's recent release, Local Support. This one is called 100 Days, one of my personal favorites. And again, thank you to the listeners for checking us out and listening to the show. I'm your host, Max Bowen.
And I'm Curtis Hughes.
And we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Waited for the lights to come down. Every exhale hung in the air. Your pulse picks you apart. There's a bottom and no one's there. If I could be something to keep, something simple more than you can believe, I'm asking you to hold me up. I'm asking you to hold me up. I'm still trying to shake the taste in all the ways. Holding step, keeping pace. If I could hold my breath to keep my chest in check, you beg back and forth. I'm afraid that's as good as it gets. If I could be something to keep, something simple more than you can believe, I'm asking you to hold me up. 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 Every memory in my head, insecurities I won't
And with that, we bring this episode to a close. Thanks for listening, and if you haven't already, check us out on Facebook under Citywide Blackout, and Twitter and Instagram under Citywide Max. You can catch this and all your favorite episodes on your favorite podcast platform, and new episodes are added every week, as well as on Boston Free Radio every Saturday at 10 p.m. You get at me at citywidemax@yahoo.com if you want to suggest a guest, submit your music, or just drop us a line. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.